The night he heard cries in the dust, the desert was silent. Jace Morgan drove his old rover through the broken lands, where sand met metal and bones of forgotten wars. The sun had set hours ago. Now the sky was dark, and the wind whispered secrets through the cracks in the rocks. He was alone. He liked it that way. After the war ended, Jace didn't want cities. He didn't want people, just space to breathe. He searched old crash zones and dead battlefields, collecting anything useful. Metal, wires, sometimes old weapons. It paid enough to keep him alive. But tonight felt different. As he passed a rusted alien warship half buried in sand, he heard it. A sound. He stopped the rover, turned off the engine. Silence. Then again. Soft, broken crying. Not human. Not machine. Something. Alive. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped into the wind. His boots sank into dust. The sound came from under the wreck. A low, shaky voice. Like someone calling for help, but afraid to be heard. Jace moved closer, climbing over twisted metal beams and shattered glass. Then he saw it. A small escape pod, barely intact, half covered by sand and rock. The glass was cracked. Inside, something moved. He used his tools to break the door open. A puff of hot, stale air hit his face. Inside was a woman, not human. Her skin was pale blue, glowing faintly. Her body was covered in bruises and cuts. Her arms shook as she tried to sit up. And beside her, 3 tiny figures. Children, triplets, alien babies with big glowing eyes, quiet and still. One of them stared at Jace. The woman opened her mouth. Her voice was soft, almost broken. "Please, help. My children." Then she passed out. Jace didn't think twice. He pulled her out first, then picked up the children. They were light, fragile, too quiet. As he carried the last child out, the escape pod made a strange noise, a warning beep. Jace ran. Behind him, the pod exploded, silent fire lighting up the night sky. He didn't look back. Back at his shelter, an old bunker in the rocks, Jace laid the woman on a mattress. He wrapped her wounds, gave her water, and checked the babies. They were alive, weak but breathing. He didn't know their names, didn't know where they came from, but they were scared, and they clung to him like he was the only thing in the universe that could protect them. The woman woke up hours later. Her eyes opened slowly. She looked around, panicked. Then she saw her children sleeping beside her, and him. "You saved us," she whispered. Jace nodded. "Yeah. I heard your cries." She tried to sit up. "We were running. They want my children. They say they're dangerous." Jace raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous? They're just babies." She shook her head. "No, they're more. And now, they'll come for you too." "Who?" "The hunters." Jace stared at her for a long time. He didn't trust aliens. Not after the war. But these ones, they didn't look like killers. They looked like survivors, broken, alone like him. The triplets opened their eyes and looked at him again. One of them reached out a small hand, touched his arm, and smiled. That moment hit him deep inside. He didn't understand it, but he felt it. A connection. Outside, the wind howled louder. Above, something moved in the clouds, something watching, something coming. But inside that bunker, Jace sat beside a wounded alien mother and her 3 strange children. He didn't know why. He didn't know what he was getting into. But one thing was clear. The universe had chosen him. And maybe, just maybe, he was ready to fight again. Not for war, not for money, but for them. Her story wasn't just tragic, it was dangerous. Serea lay still on the old mattress, her glowing blue skin faint in the bunker's soft light. The children slept, close to her, curled like fragile kittens, breathing slow and silent. Jace stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching them. He hadn't slept all night. Something about her words kept echoing in his mind. They want my children. They're dangerous. He had seen soldiers lie. He had seen aliens betray peace. But this woman? She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Her voice wasn't the voice of a killer. Still, Jace needed answers. When Serea finally opened her eyes, she didn't speak first. She reached to touch the children, checking them gently. When she saw they were safe, she let out a deep breath as if she had been holding it for years. Jace stepped closer. You said someone's hunting them. She nodded. Why? Serea sat up slowly. Her voice was low, like she was scared even to say the words. Because they were never supposed to be born. Jace frowned. What do you mean? She looked up at him. Her eyes glowed softly. Sad, tired, and full of pain. My people. We don't have children anymore. Our leaders, they stopped it. Controlled birth. Genetic order. Perfect soldiers only. Perfect minds. No emotions. Jace muttered. Sounds like a nightmare. It is, she said. But me? I broke that law. I ran. I wanted to feel love. I found an old medical ship. I gave myself life. I gave them life. She looked at her triplets with wonder, in her eyes. They're not just children, Jace, they're hope. They're proof that our race can feel again. Jace sat down slowly, taking it all in. And now your people want to destroy them, she nodded. Why didn't you go to the Human Alliance for help? Serea gave a weak smile. Humans and aliens barely trust each other. You know that. Besides, the ones hunting us aren't official soldiers. They're shadows, paid assassins, bounty killers. They don't leave proof. Only silence. Jace looked away, jaw tight. He knew exactly the kind of people she meant. Do they know you're here? Serea went quiet. Then she said, They followed my pod, but I scrambled the signal before crashing. I hoped no one would find us. Jace stood and began pacing. They will, if not now, soon. And when they come, I need to be ready. Serea watched him. You could walk away. Leave us now. No one would blame you. Jace stopped. His hand rested on the old gun hanging by the door. I could, he said. But your kids, they looked at me like I was more than a stranger. He turned toward her. And maybe, I want to be. Later that day, Jace opened his old storage locker. Dust flew out. Inside were weapons he hadn't touched in years. Plasma rifles, smoke grenades, old armor with burn marks from battles long past. He loaded everything. He patched the bunker's weak spots, reinforced the door, turned it from a shelter into a small fortress. The kids watched him with wide eyes. Zill, the quietest triplet, followed Jace everywhere. He tried to copy him, lifting tiny rocks like weights, pretending to fix wires with a stick. Rin was wild, curious and fast, always poking things. And Taya, she didn't speak much, but her eyes understood more than any child should. That evening, Jace shared a small meal with Serea. Her wounds were healing slowly, but her spirit was still heavy. Do they know I'm not their real father? Jace asked suddenly. Serea looked at him. They're young. They don't understand blood or species yet. They only understand one thing, kindness. He didn't reply, just nodded. Then something strange happened. Zill walked over to him, holding a broken watch Jace had tossed aside. It was an old family relic, never worked. The boy placed his small glowing hand on it, and it started ticking. Jace's eyes widened. Serea gasped. That shouldn't be possible, she whispered. They've never done that before. Outside, far beyond the hills, something moved in the sky. A sleek silver drone floated in the clouds, silent and deadly. Its red eye blinked. Target found, transmission sent. Back in the bunker, Jace stared at the watch. Zill looked up at him and smiled. It wasn't just a machine that had started working again. It was something inside Jace too. For the first time in years, he didn't feel empty. The triplets show powers. They shouldn't have. The days passed quietly, like a calm before a storm. Inside the hidden bunker, Jace began to settle into a strange routine. He wasn't just protecting the alien mother anymore. He was living among them. And every day the triplets showed him something new, something impossible. It started small. Rin, fast and reckless, jumped off a chair and should have hit the floor hard. But he didn't. He floated for a second, then landed like a feather. Jace stared at him. That wasn't normal. The kid just giggled and ran off. Later, Taya walked into the storage room, her little hands glowing faintly. She looked around, the room like she could feel everything, every wire, every pulse of heat. When Jace checked the systems later, his old broken generator was running again, on its own. But the real shock came one morning with Zill. Jace was working on a damaged drone trying to salvage parts. Wires were everywhere. Suddenly, Zill touched one of the exposed chips. A flash of light sparked. The screen on Jace's console lit up. Blueprints, maps, encrypted files all began to decrypt. Things Jace had never seen before. He grabbed the kid gently. Zill, what did you just do? The boy didn't speak, just pointed at the screen and smiled. Later that night, Jace sat with Serea near the heating coils, both watching the kids sleep. They're not normal, are they? He asked quietly. Serea didn't answer for a while, then she whispered, No, they are something new. Jace looked at her. She continued, When I gave them life, I used more than just alien science. I used hope. I used memory strands. From an old human explorer we once captured and studied. His DNA, his emotions. Jace's eyes narrowed. You, mixed human and alien? Yes, without permission, without order. They are the first of their kind. Not just a new species. A new future. He sat in silence. That explained it. The way they looked at him like he was theirs. Part of them was. They're half human? He said at last. Serea nodded slowly. Maybe more than half. That's why your presence calms them, grounds them. Jace leaned back. He didn't know whether to be angry or amazed, but he did know one thing. They were in danger, and he had no idea how to protect them from what was coming. The next day, the triplets started acting strange. Zill was quiet. Too quiet. He stared at the ceiling like he could hear something far away. Rin refused to eat. Taya clung to Serea's side like something bad was near. Jace checked the perimeter sensors. Nothing. Still, the bunker felt different, thicker air, buzzing tension. Suddenly the lights flickered. All of them. Jace grabbed his gun. A low hum filled the air like static inside his skull. And then, screaming. Not from the kids, from the walls. Jace turned and saw something terrifying. The metal itself was bending. Serea grabbed the children and shouted, It's starting. What is? Jace yelled. They're unlocking. Their power is waking up. Together. In the center of the room, the three triplets stood side by side. Their bodies glowed softly. Their eyes turned silver. Taya raised her hand, and the broken lights sparked, back to life. Rin stepped forward, and the floor beneath him rose like a wave. Zill opened his mouth, and without a word, the wind outside stopped. Everything stopped. Even the bounty drone flying nearby lost signal and dropped from the sky like a dead bird. Jace stood frozen. He wasn't looking at children anymore. He was looking at something more. More than alien. More than human. A force that was alive, curious and terrifying. Then, just as fast as it came, it stopped. The children blinked. The glow faded. Taya rubbed her eyes and yawned. Zill asked softly, Food? Jace didn't sleep that night. He sat at the bunker's door, gun in hand, thinking. If they could do that, what else were they capable of? Were they a blessing or a bomb waiting to go off? But one thing was sure. He couldn't run now. They were bonded to him. And he was bonded to them, whether the galaxy liked it or not. Far away in orbit, a red dot blinked on a warship's screen. Signal detected. Power surge confirmed. The hunters had found them again, and this time, they weren't coming alone. Hunted in the hills, betrayed by a human. The sun was just starting to rise behind the dusty hills. Jace stood at the edge of the cliff near the bunker, looking out across the red horizon. He hadn't slept in 2 days. His beard was rough, his eyes bloodshot, but his mind was sharp. The kids had changed. The world had changed. And now, he had a feeling something was coming. Behind him, inside the bunker, Serea wrapped the triplets in thick cloaks. The air felt colder than usual. The children were quieter, sensing the tension. Even Taya, who usually hummed when nervous, sat silent beside her mother. "Are we leaving?" Zil asked. "Yes," Serea whispered. "It's not safe here anymore." Jace climbed back inside, carrying a bag of old ID tags and energy packs. "Pack light, we'll move before they catch our scent." "Where?" Serea asked. "I have a contact," Jace said. "A man named Krelll. He runs a black market freight line in the southern canyons. He owes me a favor." Serea looked unsure. "Can we trust him?" Jace paused. "We'll find out." They moved before sunrise. The desert was quiet. Not peaceful, just waiting. Jace led them on foot through an old smuggler's trail between tall rock walls. He held his rifle ready, eyes scanning the sky. Serea carried the twins. Zil walked beside Jace, holding his hand. Every few minutes, the boy would stop and look behind them. "What is it?" Jace finally asked. "I feel something," Zil said, watching. Jace looked up. Nothing. Still, his gut agreed. By midday, they reached the old canyon outpost. Krelll was waiting. A tall, scarred man in a brown cloak, with a half-metal face and eyes that scanned like a machine. "Well, well," he said, smirking. "Didn't expect to see you again, Morgan." "Didn't expect to come," Jace replied. Krelll looked at the alien woman and her children. His smile widened. "So this is the precious cargo." "They're not cargo," Jace snapped. Krelll raised his hands. "Easy, soldier. I'm just here to help, like you asked." He opened a steel hatch behind him. "Hide in here. I've got an old crawler rig ready. It'll take you across the border to the Badlands. No trackers, no patrols." Serea hesitated. "You're sure?" Krelll smiled again. "Lady, I don't care what color your skin glows. I care about credits. Jace has some. That's all I need." Jace narrowed his eyes. Something about Krell's tone felt too smooth. They stepped inside the dark chamber. It smelled like oil and metal. Suddenly, the door slammed shut. Jace spun around. "What the hell, Krell?" Through the thick glass panel, Krell stood grinning. Behind him, 2 heavily armed bounty hunters uncloaked, weapons ready. "I told you I wanted credits," Krell said coldly. "But they're offering me 10 times more for that alien brood of yours." Serea screamed, pulling her children close. Jace grabbed his weapon, but the walls were sealed tight. The room was reinforced. "This is a mistake, Krell," Jace yelled. "They're just kids." "They're weapons," Krell replied, "and the galaxy's scared of what they'll grow into." Then he leaned closer to the glass. "And you, my old friend? You're just a man who got soft." Jace turned to the others. "Stay behind me." He aimed his rifle at the vent and fired. Sparks flew. A small hole burst open. He turned to Zil. "Can you fit through that?" Zil nodded. "Go. Now. Crawl to the other side. There's a power grid. Touch it. Shut everything down." Zil hesitated. Taya grabbed his hand. "You can do it." Zil nodded again and crawled in. Seconds passed. Then, boom. The entire room went dark. The glass hissed open. Jace and Serea rushed out, guns blazing. One bounty hunter dropped. The other fired back, grazing Jace's arm. Zil emerged from the smoke, his hands glowing. Jace picked him up and ran. Krelll tried to run too, but Rin stepped forward and lifted him into the air with his mind. Krelll floated, kicking and screaming. Didn't mean it. I was scared. It was just business. Jace walked up to him. You betrayed children, he said coldly. Then he nodded to Rin. The boy dropped Krelll, hard, unconscious. The family didn't stop running for miles. By sunset they had reached the edge of the Badlands. Jace collapsed to the ground, breathing hard. His arm was bleeding. The kids crowded around him. Serea wrapped his wound with cloth and said, You saved us again. He looked at the triplets, their glowing eyes wide with worry. I didn't just save you, he said softly. You saved me too. In the night sky above, more red dots appeared, dozens. The real hunt had begun. And next time, it wouldn't be just bounty hunters, it would be war. The human who fought like a father. The cave was deep, hidden behind layers of dry stone in the dead heart of the Badlands. It wasn't much, just shadows and silence. But for now, it was safety. Jace stood near the cave mouth, watching the horizon, glow red as dust storms swirled. His bandaged arm throbbed, but he didn't care. His thoughts were somewhere else. The kids were finally asleep, huddled under Serea's arms. But Jace couldn't rest. He had seen the sky last night, red dots blinking in the clouds. Not satellites, not bounty drones, warships. They weren't coming to capture anymore. They were coming to erase. Inside the cave, Serea knelt by a glowing stone she had shaped into a heat source. Her eyes looked tired but stronger now. Every time Jace looked at her, she seemed more alive, more like a queen in hiding than a refugee. I saw the ships, she said without turning. They'll come with fire this time. Jace nodded. Yeah, and when they do, I'll be ready. Serea turned toward him. You don't have to do this. I do, Jace said, because they're not just your kids anymore. He looked toward the sleeping triplets. They're mine too. The next day, Jace did something he hadn't done in years. He trained. Not for war, not for revenge, but for protection. He cleaned his gear, repaired old rifles, and practiced hand-to-hand, drills in the sand. He set up traps outside the cave, low-tech but deadly. Clay mines, EMP tripwires, mirrored decoys. But more than that, he trained the children. He didn't teach them how to fight. He taught them how to think, how to move quietly, how to spot danger before it arrived. He made it a game. Hide from me, he'd say, don't let me find you. Taya vanished into shadows. Rin used wind to cover his trail. Zill changed the color of his skin to match the rocks. Jace was stunned. You kids are going to be impossible to stop. The triplets giggled. Then Zill looked at him and said softly, Oh, you are real father now? Jace froze. He crouched down and looked the boy in the eyes. I don't know what the universe says, he whispered. But I promise you, I will never leave you. No matter what comes. Zill smiled and hugged him. Taya and Rin joined. Serea stood nearby, one hand on her chest. For the first time since her escape, she felt safe. That night, Serea sat beside Jace under the stars. We never had this, she said. What? Jace asked. Fathers, mothers, family, my people gave up emotion long ago. She touched his hand. But now I see it again. He didn't say anything. She leaned closer. You are not just fighting to protect us. She placed her hand on his heart. You are fighting because your heart has already decided who you are. Jace looked at her, and for a brief, quiet moment, they were just a man and a woman. No war, no running, no fear, just something real in the silence. But the silence didn't last. At dawn, the sky turned black. Alien dropships screamed through the clouds like angry ghosts, slicing the sky open. Dozens. Hundreds. Jace ran to the cave. Get ready. It's happening. Serea grabbed the kids. Where do we go? We don't, Jace said. We stand. From the hilltop above the cave, Jace took position with a long-range rifle. He fired at the first drop pod as it landed, hit the fuel line. The ship exploded before it touched ground, but there were too many. Too fast. He ran back into the cave. The traps will slow them, he said. But we need more. Serea looked at the kids. Are you ready? Taya nodded. Yes, Mama. Zil closed his eyes. They're close, Rin growled. Let me help, Papa. Jace gave them a hard look. Then let's show them what family fight's like. The battle began like thunder, loud, chaotic, merciless. Jace moved through the sand like a ghost, taking down squads one by one. Serea used alien tech to create shields and confuse the attackers. The triplets? They moved like wind and light. Rin spun tornadoes that threw enemies off cliffs. Taya created illusions that sent drones crashing into rocks. And Zil? Zil shut down an entire ship with just his voice. His words twisted machines and stopped their minds. The alien army didn't know what hit them. They had come to crush one family. Instead, they faced a storm. When the dust settled, dozens of bodies lay in the sand. The warships in the sky pulled back. Retreating. Jace stood in the center of it all, his gun still smoking. Serea walked to him, the children behind her. She smiled through tears. You didn't just protect us. She looked at him like she finally saw something she never believed in before. You became something our world forgot existed. Jace raised an eyebrow. What's that? She whispered. A father. The invasion begins. But so does hope. The stars were no longer quiet. Above Earth, black ships floated like tombstones, silent, massive, and waiting. The invasion had not just begun. It had already arrived. But down below, deep in the Badlands, one man stood between fire and family. Jace Morgan. Scarred, tired, and human. But not alone anymore. The triplets stood on a stone ridge, their cloaks fluttering in the wind. Taya looked up. So many, Zil whispered. They're afraid. Of us? Rin asked. No, Zil said. Of what we might become. Behind them, Serea placed her hands on their shoulders. The galaxy fears change, she said. But change always begins with something small, a spark. She looked at Jace. He was our spark. Inside the cave, Jace clicked open his emergency beacon. It was old tech, one of the last remaining links to the underground resistance. He only had one shot. He sent a short, coded message. They're here. The children are alive. We fight. If you believe in peace, answer. He pressed send and waited. Nothing. Then, blink 1. Light. Then 5. Then dozens. Old resistance cells, scattered outlaws, disgraced commanders, even aliens who had once fought against humanity, all pinged back with the same response. We're coming. Across the galaxy, strange ships began to move. Some were old, rusted, cracked, but they carried something stronger than weapons. Hope. Meanwhile, the enemy's fleet began launching dropships toward Earth's surface. Their leader, a cold-blooded alien, known only as the emissary, watched the transmissions closely. He turned to his second-in-command. They've called for help, the soldier asked. Should we destroy the planet now? No, the emissary replied. We let them gather. He smiled cruelly. And then, we crush their hope in front of them. Back on Earth, Jace prepped. The children. No more games, no more hiding, he said. Taya asked, what if we're not strong enough? You are, Jace said firmly. Rin clenched his fists. We'll fight. Zil looked at Jace and asked, will you fight with us? Jace knelt down. I'll fight for you. I'll bleed for you. I'll stand in front of every weapon they send. He looked at all three of them. Because you're not just a reason to fight. He touched his chest. You're the reason I live. Later that night, the resistance arrived. Ships landed quietly in the canyons. Stealth cruisers, scout pods, fighters with scratched paint and glowing cores. Out stepped warriors from every corner of the galaxy. Humans in black armor, Aliens with cloaks made from starlight, and standing among them, an old friend of Jace's, Commander Raza. He walked up, scarred and missing an arm. Didn't think I'd ever answer another call. Jace grinned. Didn't think I'd ever make one. Raza looked at the triplets. These are the ones? Jace nodded. They don't look dangerous. They're not, Jace said. They're what comes after danger ends. The final battle began before dawn. Alien dropships rained from the sky. But this time, Earth did not stand alone. Fighters from the Resistance met them mid-air. Explosions lit the morning sky like fireworks. Jace fought like he had nothing to lose, because he had everything to protect. Serea led a unit of alien allies, using old language codes to confuse the enemy. Rin summoned gusts of wind to knock enemies off balance. Teia created dazzling illusions, tricking the enemy into shooting shadows, and Zil reached into the enemy fleet systems with his mind. He hijacked their communication. Across every enemy screen, a child's voice echoed. You're not fighting to survive. You're fighting to stop something beautiful. Then silence. The enemy ships powered down. Their soldiers, confused, began retreating. The emissary watched from above, fury in his veins. Enough, he hissed. He landed himself, a massive, dark figure in shining black armor glowing with pulsing hate. He marched toward the battlefield, blades out. Jace stepped in front of the children. I know who you are, Jace said. I know what you've done, the emissary growled. You protected what should have been erased. I protected my family. You think they'll save your broken species? No, Jace replied. I think they'll become what your species never could. Then he charged. The final duel wasn't clean. It wasn't fair. It was brutal. Jace took hits. Blood stained the sand. But he didn't fall, because each time he staggered, he looked up and saw them watching. Teia, with tears in her eyes, Rin clutching his mother's hand, Zil whispering his name. And in the last moment, Jace dropped his gun. He stepped forward, unarmed. The emissary laughed and raised his blade, but before it could strike, Zil raised his hand. The blade froze mid-air. Teia and Rin joined him. All three children glowed, light pouring from their bodies. Like the birth of a new star, the emissary screamed and vanished into dust. The battle was over, but something greater had begun. As the dust cleared, the Resistance stood silently around the children, watching, worshipping, hoping. Jace fell to one knee, exhausted. Serea ran to him and held him close. You kept your promise, she whispered. He smiled weakly. Yeah, he said, and I'd do it again. A father of 3 worlds, 3 days had passed since the sky stopped burning. The invasion was over. The enemy fleet was gone. The emissary turned to dust. But what remained wasn't silence. It was something stronger. Hope. The Resistance had set up camp near the old canyon base. Not as soldiers now, but as witnesses. No one had ever seen anything like the triplets. Some called them miracles. Others, prophecy. But all agreed on one thing. The war ended because of them, and standing quietly in the center of it all was the man who raised them. Jace Morgan didn't want speeches. He didn't care for medals or titles. He stood in his same old jacket, worn and patched, watching as Zil helped build a signal tower. Rin chased a lizard up a rock wall, and Teia painted swirling stars on a canyon wall using just her hands and light. Serea walked up beside him. The world is listening now. He didn't. Look away from the kids. Good. Let the world listen to them. She smiled. But you know they'll always see you as the reason they lived. Jace finally turned. I didn't make them powerful. No, Serea said. You made them human. Later that evening, a message came through the new interplanetary link. The Human Alliance and the surviving Alien Council were inviting the children to speak. Not in war, but in peace talks. Zil tilted his head. What do we say? Serea placed her hand on his. Say what you feel. Taya whispered. Will they listen? Jace stepped forward. If they don't listen to you, they don't deserve a future. The peace meeting was held on the orbiting station above Earth. It was quiet at first. High-ranking humans, alien elders, nervous soldiers, hollow screens broadcasting across hundreds of worlds. Then the three children entered. No weapons. No guards, just innocence and light. Taya spoke first. She told them about fear, about hiding, about being called dangerous before she could even speak. Rin spoke next. He told them about Jace, how a soldier who lost everything gave his heart to three strangers. Zill stood last and said only this. You tried to destroy what you didn't understand, but he chose to love it. Then he stepped aside, and Jace walked in. The entire chamber went still. He looked around the room, hands at his sides. You want new worlds? You want peace? You keep building walls and giving orders and playing gods. That's not how peace is made. He pointed toward the triplets. Peace begins when you stop asking what someone is, and start asking who they can become. Silence, then applause, then agreement. Weeks passed, a treaty was signed. The children were declared protected guardians of the new alliance. New colonies were set up, not for war or expansion, but for education, healing, unity. But what about Jace? He could have become a general. He could have ruled. Instead, he chose something else. He moved into a small home on a floating island built by the triplets. It had no doors, only open space, sky, and peace. There, he taught the children how to cook, how to climb trees, how to fix broken bikes. He taught them how to laugh without fear. He taught them how to be human. Serea joined him there. Sometimes they spoke of war. Sometimes they just sat in silence, side by side, watching the clouds drift. And every night, before sleep, the children would come running. Tell us a story, Rin shouted. About before. Taya grinned. The time you punched that drone. Zill laughed, and Jace would smile, sit by the fire, and begin. Once, I was just a man, lost, empty. Then I heard a cry in the dust. On 3 different planets, statues were built in his honor. One called him the Father of Peace. One called him the human who stayed. And one simply said, he didn't save the galaxy. He raised the ones who did.